Hey everybody, my name is Seth Hackett. I'm a member here at the Carthage Church of Christ, and I'll be bringing you all the thought for the week. Hope everyone's having a great week so far. I just wanted to take a few minutes today and talk about the importance of the example that we set as Christians. Albert Schweitzer, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is credited with saying, "A good example has twice the value of good advice." I really like this quote. For me personally, I would much rather someone show me something about themselves through their actions than tell me about it. And I try to live this out in my own life as well. I would rather show you than tell you something about myself. Merriam-Webster had a couple of different definitions of the word example that stuck out to me. One that serves as a pattern to be imitated or not to be imitated. The Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 11:1 tells us, "Imitate me, just as I also imitate Christ." He was telling us to try and be like him because he was trying to be like Christ. And from all the information the Bible has on his life as a Christian, Paul definitely set an example that we would do well to imitate today. We also have examples in the Bible of what we should strive to not imitate, but rather avoid. And Paul highlights this thought of bad examples in Romans chapter 16, verse 17, where he says, "Now I urge you, brethren, note those who cause divisions and offenses, contrary to the doctrine which you learned, and avoid them." The second definition that stood out to me, one that is representative of all of a group or type. We are each individual representatives of the body of Christ as a whole, and that's why it's important that we make sure that we're setting the right example to those around us. In Mark chapter 16, verse 15, a passage we know as the Great Commission, Jesus said to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. We should still apply this to our lives today as Christians by trying to bring others to Christ. This can be done in other ways besides actually just preaching, though. The examples we set in our lives can play a huge role in sparking someone's interest in God and His Word. Another quote, this one credited to Einstein, "Setting an example is not the main means of influencing others, it is the only means." The Bible makes it clear that it is God who gives the increase, but that we can also play a role in the process. In 1 Corinthians 3, verses 6 through 8, Paul writes, "I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. So then neither he who plants is anything, nor he who waters, but God who gives the increase. Now he who plants and he who waters are one, and each one will receive his own reward according to his own labor." The examples that we set in our lives could be the planting or watering that someone needs in order for them to come to Christ. Normally we think of adults setting the example for younger generations, and that should definitely be the case. But Paul, however, in a verse that we're very familiar with in 1 Timothy 4, tells us this doesn't always have to be the case. Here he tells Timothy in verse 12, "Let no one despise your youth, but be an example to the believers in word, in conduct, in love, in spirit, in faith, in purity." The Bible gives us all kinds of traits that we should practice as Christians, but one of my favorite passages comes from Galatians chapter 5, starting in verse 22. "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law." I remember Eric mentioning in a Sunday morning Bible study not too long ago that we should read that passage at least once every day, if not more. That's something I've tried to implement in my life, and doing that has allowed me to focus on something every day that I know I can improve on as a Christian. Let's all take a minute, examine our spiritual lives for things we may need to change, and set out to be the Christian examples that we should be this week. Thank you for your time. I hope you're able to take something from this going forward in your life. Feel free to message us here at the Carthage Church of Christ if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and we'd love to have you join us for services anytime that you may have the opportunity. Have a blessed week.